Cybersecurity concerns are ever evolving. OT cybersecurity is even more complex, and it's so much more than just software and hardware. How do you stay on top of it all? Aaron Crow has over 25 years experience with cybersecurity. 15 of those years focused on operational technology across multiple industries, and he wants to help you. Welcome to the Protect OT Cybersecurity Podcast, brought to you by Industrial Defender. Now here's your host, Aaron Crow.
Welcome to the show. I got my friend Tom VanNorman with ICS Village. Tom, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us about your background and ICS Village.
Thank you, Aaron. Hello, everyone. My name is Tom VanNorman. I'm one of the co-founders of the ICS Village. ICS Village is a 501c3 nonprofit that we've been around for, almost 10 years now. I think the actual date is 8, it might be 9. Time certainly flies. We are an organization that is made up of volunteers and sponsors. A little bit about myself. I've been working with industrial control systems now for, about 3 decades. Time flies when you're having fun. You know, the 8 years ago, I retired from the Air National Guard, where I was doing offensive cyber operations for the Network Warfare Squadron. Prior to that, I worked on airplanes. I was working on control systems on airplanes for about 12 years, and then my last 12 years working in the Network Warfare Squadron. So deep background in industrial control systems. It's the only thing that I really have been doing, so I kind of like it. And say the ICS Village, we've been around for many years now. Bryson Bort is my co-founder. We took it from just a couple volunteers that started us at DEF CON many years ago, and we went and incorporated it. We turned it into a nonprofit. Now we are collecting sponsors. We have many cool things that we have going on that we'll talk about here in the next few minutes, Aaron.
Awesome. Yeah, I've been really fortunate to be part of ICS Village and be able to be part of that and volunteer and be at conferences and speak and really be part of it. And it's exciting, right? It's a cool opportunity to reach out and be in front of folks from a different perspective. It's not my sales hat. It's not my CTO hat. It's really from a learning and teaching and getting message out. And a lot of the folks that we see when we're going out and we're in those spaces is they've never heard of IT, or they heard of IT, but they've never seen it in person. And, all the blinky light stuff that I have back there, like they're really interested. Like, what is that? I've seen them online, but I've never seen them. And why is it different? And so it's a great opportunity to really get the message out, really have some cool conversations with folks at DEF CON or RSA or a lot of the places that we go to. So talk about that. Like what do we do at these conferences, and if they come see us at one of these pavilions or whatever, including S4 that's coming up too.
Absolutely. So the ICS Village has been around for many years, and starting at DEF CON, we have our biggest turnout by far. This past year, Aaron, you were there. What would you put that at? 15,000 people probably came through our room. It was nonstop.
It was crazy.
Just not nonstop. The nice thing about that is we certainly didn't have to bring any swag home because it was all gone. Everybody took it. But we started ICS Village mainly to introduce people to industrial control systems. So our core focus is awareness and education of control systems and the security of those systems. One of the things that we started way back in the day, instead of going after presenters that are on the stage when they're talking about a new vulnerability they found or something, we quickly realized that, hey, these researchers, these people talking about these systems really have no hands-on experience. yes, the systems are vulnerable. We get that. And we'll touch on what matters and what doesn't matter here in a few minutes. But we decided to take a different approach with that. Instead of going and making fun of that presenter or discrediting that presenter or something, let's go and educate the audience or educate that presenter on, hey, yes, that controller does have a vulnerability. But does it really matter if that controller is, 3 levels down into your network? When you talk about defense in depth and things like that, that network monitoring wasn't really a thing for industrial control systems when you started this 8 years ago. Now we have, technologies such as what Industrial Defender has and many other companies. So back then it was different. We're out to educate people. We still are. We still talk about the same things what we did back then, just on a much larger scale. We still talk about insecure by design, insecure systems, insecure protocols, and things like that. But I think that we have definitely moved the needle on what matters and what doesn't matter. So within ICS Village, we do several things all year round. One of the thing is Bryce Abort, my co-founder. He does a monthly podcast called Hack the Plant. You can find that on our website, just icsvillage.com. There's a podcast button, and he has some pretty cool podcasts that he releases every month. We also do multiple conferences or events each year. Coming to an end of 23 here. We're done with all of our events this year, but we did about a dozen different events. Some of them large scale, such as DEF CON, Black Hat DEF CON, and our own conference, Hack the Capital. But we also do small ones, like road shows that we're going to talk about coming up. For 2024, what we have scheduled already, we had some pretty cool things. We have the Tri-Sector Cyber Defense Exercise held in DC. We have S4, we're running the Vulnerability Pavilion. We have a RSAC and Hack the Capital. Hack the Capital is our own conference. It's going to be held in Washington, D.C., May-June timeframe. We're still working out the date with the venue. And we're also doing B-Sides Puerto Rico in the spring. One of the cool things that we started to do this year are what we call road shows. Between ICS Village, Industrial Defender, Insane Forensics, then we had Garland Technologies, Scythe, and TX1. We went to multiple cities. So the first set of road shows were just Industrial Defender and Insane Forensics in ICS Village. We went to Houston, Austin, San Antonio, spent a day in each city. We rent a boardroom or Top Golf or wherever we can find a venue. And we have usually about a half a day of just discussions, tabletops, things that are non-sales focused. We invite people. They come. They get a day of learning. We'll have lunch. We'll hit some golf balls. We'll do some fun stuff also. But it is a completely non-sales environment to talk about latest things. We have a tabletop exercise that we do that's pretty cool. The best thing about that is it's for socialization. We get people involved and people talk. Aaron and I usually do them, and works pretty good when we bounce things off of each other and we pull the audience in and make them talk to us, make them talk to the person to the left and right of them. It's really great to see the responses, especially when we have a move that we throw up on the screen and we have 4 different choices. I'm like, nobody's gonna pick 3. Nobody ever picks, and they pick 3 and they defend it. And we're like, that makes sense. Yeah. So it's really great to hear other people's thought process. We learn something every single time that we go out and we do these. But yes, we have a lot of really great things, going. We're going to be back at a DEF CON, and this year we're actually going to have a road show during Black Hat. And the last thing that we are getting involved in is workforce development. We just received a grant from the Gula Foundation, so thank you to them. We received money for workforce development. We entered into a apprenticeship program that we're developing with Siemens Power, with Sands Institute, ICS Village, and a few other organizations. Right now, the apprenticeship program is sitting with the Department of Labor for the Rapids Code. And once we get that, we can start pushing it out. So there's a lot of really good things going on around workforce development right now.
That's awesome. You just said so much there, but I really want to double click on some of those, right? And
Yep.
Starting out with conferences and it's a low hanging fruit way for people to go. Like a lot of times they're already going to these conferences. They're interested in these things and they're able to, I've got a demo kit here behind me that's blinky lights and PLCs and fun things that, you may not have seen before or been able to put hands on. But you go, ICS Village brings some really cool tabletop physical demo environments that you can see and play with and interact with, and the Tesla coil and the cool stuff that's there, and simulating attacks and responses and being able to see data, and that's really interesting for people to be able to, again, that either don't have very much OT data or understanding, experience, et cetera, and they don't really have an opportunity because they're sitting in an IT seat or whatever the case may be. It's a way to really ask questions, and there are no dumb questions. It's really just learning, right? And that's, to your point, like not calling out people for saying stupid things, because it's not stupid. It's just they don't have the experience. So it gives them a safe space to come and ask questions and play and look at and learn from each other. And to your point, those people ask some really great questions, and they make some really good defenses on things that maybe an OT guy is going to say, oh, well, that's stupid. But is it? Because some of the things they've brought up, to like your point that we've heard in some of these tabletops, is they have really good perspectives on things that we may not think of just in our own OT bubble. Even though I've got 25 plus years and you've got 30 plus years, all of our experience together, we can have some assumptions that we just put in, and we don't think about the thing that the kid that hasn't seen it before brings up, which is a good opportunity for everybody to learn.
Absolutely. The touch on the kits that we bring to these conferences. So one of the founding companies with ICS Village is GRIMM Cyber. Over at GRIMM Cyber, I run the CyPhy department there, and we build these kits. The nice thing about these kits is they're made up of real hardware. To your point, there's some with Tesla coils, there's some with water tanks and pumps and motors and things like that. It gives people the opportunity to touch, feel, look at, point at that, controller, point at the safety systems, point at whatever, and the physical part, and ask questions. Say, hey, that's a PLC, or that's an HMI or an OIT or whatever. And after doing this for so long, we get into a habit of thinking, everybody knows what a PLC is. But there's a lot of times when people say, what's PLC stand for? Or what's HMI or OIT? Or, what's the difference between OIT and PLC or HMI? So it's great to see that, we're getting new people in this space that are asking questions. And each time we go to a different area of the country, or we focus on a different vertical, the terminology's changed, but it's the same thing, right? The technology is the same, but the terminology changed. There's a lot of industries that call everything SCADA. There's a lot of, DCS or PLCs or whatever the terminology is. And it's pausing a second. Okay, now we're working in the power sector, we're working in the water or pharmaceutical or whatever. They're using these terminologies, but it's taking that, teaching other people. Yes, they're using SCADA as a generic term. This is what SCADA by definition is. They're using it as this. They're not wrong. It's what they do. So it's bringing awareness on the different terminologies. It's bringing awareness and educating people on technologies and latest threats, but not just the latest threats, but the old threats, because the old threats, a lot of them are completely relevant still.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a unique problem that we have in the OT space, right? Is that a lot of this technology is old, and we're not just replacing it because it's old, because it's doing the job. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So we don't just get to, hey, I'm not going to have Windows XP on my IT side. Give them a new laptop, right? You can't necessarily do that on the OT side. So I have to deal with old technology and old vulnerabilities and old systems and protocols and all the things that come with that. I can't just replace and I can't just patch. So there's a lot of complexities and vulnerabilities that get brought into that because of the way that OT is inherently designed and how old the systems are.
That's a great point, Aaron. It's pretty common for us to talk to a company that they have flat networks. The networks are
Right.
not segmented. They might have different subnets. They have a bunch of older routers in place. They might have a couple ACLs, but for all intents and purposes, you can go to the one part of the company and ping something on the other part
Right.
on the OT floor. Uh, well, it's not a easy thing to just replace that router that's been in operation for 10 years
Right.
with a new security appliance. We'll call that a next gen firewall.
Mm-hmm.
To put in there. It's not a trivial thing. These are manufacturing facilities that some of them run 24/7, uh, or if not 24/7, they're running 8 to 16 hours a day, 5 days a week. And if you disrupt that, you have a plant floor full of people that are going home. You have production that's going down, and sometimes these margins are single digits. So when you disrupt that production for a day or two, you're really hurting the bottom line of the company. So we have to figure out what kind of technology we can put in place to segment or secure that network, especially with a CMMC regulations and stuff like that. Uh, we do have to work with companies to safely secure their networks while thinking about, hey, how do we have the lowest impact to production? Uh, at the end of the day, we always want to keep right a boom. We do not want
Right.
to create a problem. Uh, when we work with these systems here, it's all about health, life, and safety because we can kill people, we can put people out of jobs, we can put companies out of businesses. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a unique space for us in OT, right? Is we have to look at these problems differently. Like we've been doing incident response and disaster recovery and all of these things in the IT world for 20 years. Like we've conquered vulnerability and we've conquered being, relative, right? But we know how to design secure networks. We know how to design secure processes. We know how to monitor for things, but OT is different. Like I can't just take an IT process and roll it into OT and expect it to work. I can't just patch every patch Tuesday. I can't just kick something off the network because I think it may be malicious. Like I can't do those things because there's implications to those things. So it sounds like the apprenticeship that you guys are looking at is really looking at not just the technology side of things, but also the process side, right? And understanding why things are different and how they're different and what is different about it at OT and why I can't do things this certain way so that I can take these technologies and capabilities that I have on the IT side and great products that are out there, ours and many others. And how do I implement that so that I have a more robust system? So I have more availability. So I'm not impacting the bottom line of these environments with a very small margin, like you said, adding a an incident, a 1-day incident could be the difference of profitability and not in some of these facilities. It's that tight of a margin.
absolutely, and for apprenticeship, we're really excited about that. One of the reasons why we started the apprenticeship, we're pushing it forward as hard as we are right now, is we frequently get requests from uh, companies about hiring people. We frequently talk to people, hey, how do I find a job? Who's hiring?
Right.
Those type of conversations. We hear about the shortage of people in the workforce. Uh, that's a whole nother podcast that we can go down and debunk those myths. But one of the things that I run into quite frequently is, hey, I'd love to hire these people, but they don't have the skills and they want so much money. They want $100,000, we'll say, to start, and they don't have the skills. I end up training them, and then they quickly leave for that next higher paid job. And I get it. It's a tough situation to crack there. Not every company has a deep pockets as a Fortune 100 company.
Yep.
So for the apprenticeship program, we're going to start a program that is 4 years in length. It is not just for say blue collar. It is a program that everybody can go through, whether you're going through an associate's degree program, a college, university, 2-year, 4-year, 5-year, 6-year. It does not matter. The companies that we're talking to about partnering, they'll have hands-on. They'll have an opportunity to gain firsthand knowledge and hands-on experience while in school. When they finish the program, they'll have documented things that they have done. We're going through the process of identifying all those steps and all the qualifications, we'll say. So when they get done with the program, it'll be they've had actual experience working in the field. Now there's a lot of things that we're still working out. Right now we're going to limit it to veterans is our first primary audience, and once we vet out the processes or work out the processes and everything, then we're going to slowly open up the access to more people.
Sure.
But we're very excited and very thankful that the Gula Foundation gave us a philanthropy grant to get this moving.
No, that's awesome. It's an amazing thing, and as we know, like you said, like we could talk a whole podcast just on the resourcing. And it's not that there's not skilled resources. It's just, it's the chicken and egg. Like, how do you get experience without being in the job, and how do you get the job without getting the experience? Like, a lot of us were thrust into it, and we were in the right place at the right time. Because I have a lot of my career was in IT. So I one of my first jobs was in power utility and OT, and then I left that and went. A lot of my career, for the next 10 plus years, I was doing stuff just on the corporate side. Very large, AT&T and Tyco Electronics and Lucent Technologies and Singular and State Farm and a lot of places like that. But then, I came back and I was doing this work at a power generations facility, company. And when they hired me, I wasn't even doing what I would consider now OT stuff. Yes, it was in the OT space. It was technology in the OT adjacent. It was supporting type systems. And then NERC SIP and other things came up, and they were like, hey, we need somebody that can do this, this, and this. And I was really the only person that had that skill set because of my engineering and my architecture and my networking capabilities and the stuff that I'd done before I joined. So I was a natural transition to do that. And because I'd worked for the company on the adjacent OT stuff, I also understood the plant processes and that kind of stuff. So it was a good one too, that I was able to be valuable. I'd been to power plants and worn hard hats, and I understood how plants work and why I couldn't do things a certain way and how the operators and the whole process worked. So that language barrier, like you said, you go to there's 17 critical infrastructure verticals, as we know. Each one uses different language to say the same thing. Like one calls it SCADA, one calls it DCS, one calls it, whatever, right? And they mean this. So just because they say SCADA, sometimes I'm like, what do you mean when you say SCADA? What do you mean when you say, protocol or secure remote access or, I have no remote access. Well, except where I do. The vendor has remote access, but, we don't have it. Well, okay, that's still remote access. How do they get in? Oh, well, they've got this 3G card that's plugged into that thing over there, and they just dial in and they get in, oh, so you do have remote access. This is, so those are the types of questions, but only because I've seen those things 100 times do I know to ask those questions. So a normal person coming in without that experience they may take it for granted. Oh, well, they told me there's no remote access. Check. No problem. Right. And they don't know to ask those clarifying questions of, what about the vendor? What about how does somebody remotely tune it? Like all those types of questions that I've seen firsthand, which is why I know to ask.
Aaron, when you talk about the physical systems and stuff like that, one of the things that we always enjoy talking about is why something doesn't matter. There's a lot of things that do matter, but when we talk about processes, process engineers have been engineering safety devices for decades, much longer than cyber was even a thing. Before an Ethernet network was even a thing, they've been putting in relief valves, safety valves. They've been putting in larger size tanks or smaller tanks and things like that. So when we hear about vulnerabilities, or we talk to people at conferences that, hey, I can do X, Y, and Z by quick turning off and on this large motor and burning up something. Okay,
right.
Sure. But do you realize that that's on a soft start or on a VFD, or that 200 horsepower motor only can start X amount of times in a time period where it locks itself out because it overheats the motor and degrades your windings and things like that, and you have to get your motor rebuilt. And there's no Ethernet cable plug. There's no network connection onto that thing.
Right.
So yes, you can send a start-stop signal from your PLC that you got into, but that motor's going to lock out after we'll say 3 tries within 3 minutes, whatever configuration of it is. And so yes, you can get access to that PLC, and you can make a IO, toggle off and on really fast, but there's that other device in there that stopped that. Or you take that pressure set point and you jack that thing up to as high as it'll go. Well, that's great. Where you close that valve, the discharge valve. Well, you're either going to lift that relief valve, you're going to blow that rupture disc, or you're not going to do anything, because that pump can only pump so many GPM, where that pump can only create so much pressure. Where, okay, great, you messed the process up, and depending on the process, it created a bad day, but you're not creating the effect that you thought because you didn't understand the process.
Yeah, and that's a big piece, right? So I was just on a podcast earlier today with our friend Dan Gunter with Insane Forensics, and we talked about Sandworm and the Mandiant release that was talking about the Ukraine, power generation attack that they named out, and the DOJ's actually formally, gone against and said it was Russia, right? So we know that bad actors are doing the exact same thing that you're talking about with this program, right? They're training their technologists on how these processes work, because it started in IT, it pivoted to OT, it was speaking industrial protocol, it knew exactly how to talk to the endpoint, it knew what set points, like it knew all of this stuff. It wasn't just, trying to send out a bunch of packets and hope something fell over. Like they're starting to understand, and all the way back to Stuxnet, as we know, was very specifically designed for those controllers in that scenario to specifically do that thing. So our attackers are doing this. They know what these OT systems do. They know the limitations. They know they can't ramp up that motor beyond its set point that's hard coded into the system. So they know that, and they're working within those tolerances. Okay, knowing those things, how can I impact it, right? So we have to also be training people with that same skill set that have technology and cyber understanding, but also understand the OT limitations, how the hardware, how the business process works, how the OT system works, and bringing those things together. Because again, our adversaries are doing it, so we have to be doing the same thing, or we're behind the 8 ball.
Absolutely. We saw that with Colonial Pipeline, how an impact to the enterprise system impacted the control system or the OT system without the adversary actually accessing the OT system.
Right.
So these different networks or these different systems are very intertwined. One of the really cool programs that I've been getting involved with lately is a cyber-informed engineering program that is run out of INL, Idaho National Labs.
Mm-hmm.
Some pretty cool stuff when you talk about the coupling the physical world with the cyber world and both sides understanding each other.
Right.
That's critical because not everything matters. Not every vulnerability matters. So you have a flat network. Okay. Sometimes it just doesn't matter, right? The effect on having a flat network, it just doesn't matter. It costs more to segment it, or it costs more to fix it than what it's really worth, because at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
However, you go into a refinery, you go into a chemical plant, pharmaceutical plant, power plant. There's a lot of times where it absolutely does matter.
Yep.
And for example, here just on my desk, I got a PLC. That little device is used in every industry. Maybe not that exact one, but the ones by that manufacturer is used in every single vertical. So that vulnerability or the configuration in one industry can be a really, really big deal versus another industry. It's knowing your process, knowing what matters, what doesn't matter, knowing just everything from what business impact it has, from if you patch it, if you segment, if you do things. One of the things that I see missed all the time when we talk about risk, we talk about securing a network as SMEs or practitioners and technologists, and we go out for consulting gigs, or even at our ICS Village road shows and stuff that we have. It's not our job to accept the risk. It's our job to identify and communicate that risk. It's the company's job to accept that, and it's not even the It's not that engineer's job. It's much higher than an engineer's job to say, yes, I'm going to live with that risk. It's our job to communicate what that is. It's our job to thoroughly explain it, but it's the company's officers of the company or the C-suites or somebody to say, yes, we understand that, and yes, we accept that.
Yeah, and we've seen the new SEC thing coming out about SolarWinds CISO, and they're personally going after them and suing them, et cetera, right? So we see now also that even the CISOs are going being gone after personally for those accepting that risk or not disclosing the risk or whatever. And not to dive too far into that, but a lot of CISOs I know, and I've had this conversation before, but even a lot of the CISOs don't have the power. The CISO shouldn't also they're also not the one that should be accepting the risk, right? That's really the board and the CEO, et cetera. A lot of times the CISO is only C in name. They're not an actual executive of the company. They're not at that level. They're usually reporting to someone else. They don't have a seat at the board. They're really just an advisor of the security stuff. So that's going to have to change as well. Like if you want them, if they're going to be the ones accepting the risk, or whoever is accepting the risk really needs to fully understand. And I think that's one of the things that I love about all that we do, right? Is I think so many times a lot of these businesses are accepting risk when they don't really understand what they're accepting. They're not truly, if they were truly knowledgeable about the risk that they're accepting and how impactful it could be, I'm not sure they'd make the same decision every time.
I completely agree. So our job as technologists is to explain that, not in a inflated way, but
Right.
just the facts.
Yeah.
Just the facts. Why does this matter? What happens if you fix it? What happens if you don't fix it? It
Yeah.
may cost millions and millions of dollars to fix it. And it might be just for an air handler that operates the warehouse that really doesn't matter. Or it
Right.
could be an air handler for that warehouse that it does matter because it has to be climate controlled or things go south really quick.
Yeah.
So it's the same piece of hardware, it's the same piece of technology, different applications, and it's understanding all of that.
Yeah, and I've probably used this analogy 100 times on this podcast and at road shows, et cetera. But I've got two PLCs. They're that one right there, and they're the same exact make, model, firmware, everything. They have the same vulnerabilities on them. One is controlling an ice machine in the break room, and one is controlling the turbine. Right? They're not the same
Yeah.
risk to my business. They're the same
No, not at all.
vulnerabilities. They have the same CVSS score. They have the same patching opportunities, all that kind of stuff. But I need to be able to prioritize and understand the difference between the two to know what the actual risk am I accepting, right? Am I accepting the risk to the ice machine, or am I accepting the risk to the turbine? Because there's a whole bunch of other things that come along
Completely.
with the risk on the turbine.
Absolutely. So the this is all really good stuff, and let's go back to our road shows. Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
We said we're going to do 3 cities a quarter. So
Yep.
we got Q1 coming up here very shortly, and we're going to go out to social media and ping our networks to see where exactly people would like to see us come. So January, February, March, Q1 of 24. It'd be great if people responded back to this podcast or hit us up on social media or called us. We're definitely people that can be easily found. Uh, Give us some ideas because we would love to come to a city. Q1 it's cold here on the East Coast, so prefer to go somewhere where it's warm in Q1. But hey, we'll go anywhere. Uh, but we're looking for 3 cities. Usually they're Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and driving distance between the 3. These are free events. So we do try to manage our cost some. So we prefer to drive between the cities. The last set that we had, we started out in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We drove down to King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, which is right outside of Philadelphia, then up to New Rochelle, New York. All just a couple hour drive in between each one. And then when we did Texas, we went from Houston, Austin, and San Antonio, and
Yeah.
you know, 3 hours between Houston and San Antonio, and only about an hour between San Antonio and Austin. So it worked out really well.
Yeah.
What do we have now? We have five sponsors, 5 different companies that'll be joining
Mm-hmm.
us.
Mm-hmm.
We hope to rotate the 5th one out after every event, not because we don't like that one, but just to keep things different between
Right.
the events. So I'm really excited about those because we get to be more one-on-one with people. When we go to DEF CON and we have, gosh, it was 10 to 15,000 people.
It's
It was
overwhelming.
massive. Oh, it is. It's come completely. We had what do we have? I think we had almost 8,000 square feet at DEF CON. It was a very large area,
Yeah.
and it completely overwhelming. Where when we do these road shows, we have 12 to 18 people that we shoot for, and we get to know the people. We get to, they get to ask questions where they're not in front of a lot of other people. Normally, people don't want to ask questions when there's 200 people in the room.
Right.
These road shows here allow us to have conversations with a dozen and a half people, and it works out really well. Everybody leaves learning something.
Yeah.
So
and those are great. So we've done, like you said, we did the ones in Texas, we did the ones in the Northeast, and we have one coming up in for Black Hat. Doing Black Hat DEF CON that week. We're going to be doing them that week as well. So definitely let us know on the locations. But like you said, it's a really great opportunity to be in the room, not just with vendors that have myself and Tom who have a lot of knowledge, but I'm not necessarily wearing my industrial defender CTO, obviously I talk about kind of what we do, but more from a technology perspective, an art of the possible conversation. Like, how can I do this? What struggles am I having? Like, what, the problems that we've seen with other use cases and that kind of thing. And then people are able to say, hey, well, these are some unique scenarios that we're looking at. How would you solve that? And a lot of times, I'm saying, hey, well, look at Garland Technology, or look at, TX1, or look at these others. And, they have a capability to do this, and you patch that with this and that. And it's able to have a deeper, richer conversation than, passing by. I gave the same, 5-minute spiel 1,000 times at DEF CON, but I can only go so deep because I have to rotate it. So the next person can come in and the next person can come in. I can't spend an hour with one person, or nobody else would get an opportunity to talk to us. So it's a really great thing. And I enjoy them. I definitely want to, get more people out and get more people at those road shows. Like you said, it's free for them. Come out, learn, ask questions, go away with some swag and, maybe some Top Golf or something like that. The events are a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And, some of the other events that we have coming up, the S4 Vulnerability Pavilion.
Yep.
That's the first time that we have done this at S4. Last year, or actually this year, S4 23, we ran the CTF, and we had a bunch of hands-on stuff there, which worked out really well. So Dale Peterson, the founder of S4, offered the opportunity for us to run the vulnerability pavilion. That's going to be pretty interesting. So Dale went and got 9 sponsors for that pavilion. Mm-hmm. We're going to set up an actual network made up of hardware or made up of technology that you're going to find in a plant. I can't give away too much details because we're going to share them with the sponsors first, and vet everything out ourselves. And we're going through the design phase right now. But essentially, we're going to set up a network made up of all the different technologies, and we're going to give all of the sponsors equal access to it. So they'll get Ethernet access, just a Cat5 cable ran over to their table. They're going to get SPAN access, and they're going to get all logs forwarded to them, whatever device has a log. So everybody will get the same data set across all nine sponsors. And if you go on the S4 24 website, you'll see all the sponsors that are there.
Yep.
And they will be able to show off their technology using the same data set as the next company.
Right.
We'll be using just commercial off-the-shelf hardware. So we're not homebrewing anything. We're going to use stuff that you would find out in industry.
Right.
And how does your technology hold up against that?
Yep.
What can your technology do? So we're really excited about that. Same, we'll be back at RSAC. When is it, Aaron? I think that's May next year.
Yep.
Hack the Capitol in May or June. We're going to be expanding that. We will have a day of training, and we'll be kicking off our workforce development activities then. Besides Puerto Rico, we are invited down there by the Biohacking Village. In healthcare and hospitals, there is a tremendous amount of industrial control systems. Normally people think about healthcare and hospitals as your MRI machine, your X-ray machine, things like that, the things that touch the patient. Here, we're going to be talking about the things that are behind the scenes, your water systems, your purified water systems, your gas that the patients breathe, the HVAC, the lighting, all the stuff that's behind the scenes that go into patient care that people probably don't realize that's there.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's a number of events right there. OT, obviously, S4 is big. Dale Peterson's done a great job at having that conference be a great place to learn, to connect with industry, leaders and thought leaders and peers, and see all the latest technology. Last year they did 23 they did the S-Bomb Pavilion, and this year's the Vulnerability Pavilion. So it's really great to see, real live use cases. It's almost like a proof of concept of these things, and what data can I get off these things, and I think we're seeing in the marketplace is it's the so what, right? I've got an asset inventory. So what? What do I do with that? Like, I've got a passive monitor. So what? What do I do with that? Like, it's all products. It's not to pick on any one, but it's about of how do I incorporate that into my process, my technology, my people, and what do I do with it? What is the goal? What am I trying to enhance, and how do I take that information and then do something, make it more valuable, make me be able to classify my risk and prioritize my risk better so that I can make better business decisions. So I know where to spend that dollar or that time, or hire that resource or not spend that time, et cetera. Sometimes that's just as valuable as to say, I'm going to accept that risk, or I'm not going to remediate it. I'm just going to, air gap it, isolate it, whatever that thing may be, because as a business goes, that's the best business decision I can make for that at that facility. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, awesome, Tom. Anything else that everybody needs to know? How can they get involved? If they want to be a volunteer, they want to show up to one of these events, I'm assuming that it's all on the website and for more information, et cetera, right?
Absolutely. And Aaron, I'll provide you with some links that you can post here in the for the podcast, but icsvillage.com is where you'll find a lot of the stuff. We're always looking for new sponsors. We're always looking for new volunteers. We are getting more and more involved with different activities, different events, and we would love to meet some new faces and people willing to volunteer and help out.
Absolutely. Happy for people to reach out to me directly, talk about it. Again, ICS Village is something near and dear to my heart. It's something I'm passionate about, getting the message out. It's one of the reasons I have the podcast. It's really the same thing in person, right? It's really having conversations with people just like I do with Tom and others on this podcast, but doing it in front of folks and training and asking them difficult questions and the one-offs. So definitely come out, see ICS Village. Come participate, be a volunteer, spread the message. It's a great organization to be part of and support. So thank you for your time today, Tom. I really appreciate it, bud.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks for listening to the Protect OT Cybersecurity Podcast. If you got some valuable information from today's show, please subscribe, rate, and review the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. To learn more about Aaron, and to get your free copy of the OT Cybersecurity Solution Buyer's Guide, go to industrialdefender.com. That's industrialdefender.com, or you can click the link in the show notes.